Scholars within the last 30 years just translated a tablet from ancient Syria that was an invocation of the spirits of the Rephaim and a council of the Datanu, and a scholar has shown that that word Datanu is actually the root word for the Greek Titans.
Yes.
So
that's right.
It's the same thing from the other side of the planet.
The Canaanites preserved much of, I shouldn't say much, some of the knowledge from the pre-flood world.
Yes.
Canaanites, of course, were later called Phoenicians.
Yes.
By the Greeks. They were the great builders. They were the great masons. In fact, Solomon employed the Phoenicians to build the temple.
Alexander used the Phoenicians as a navy for hire.
They were the cream of the crop masons. That's where the Masonic order comes from, actually, from the Phenicians.
The Egyptians hired them as well.
That's right. And the Phoenicians, when you say Phoenician, that word is synonymous with Canaanite. And the Canaanites were some different tribes within there, but generally we call them Canaanites. And among them were the Nephilim and the Rephaim, and the Nephilim, generally speaking, for the tribes of giants, genetic giants that had the bloodline of the Watchers and so forth.
But what's happening now is there's a collective awakening happening, especially among Christians, and they're beginning to connect the dots. That when the Bible talks about Genesis 6, when it talks about the sons of God coming and taking wives from the daughters of men, and then the giants that were produced as a result, that these things were literal, and that the evidence in stone and the evidence carved into the earth, as we were talking about the geoglyphs earlier, points to this very narrative, and in a way exclusively to this very narrative.
And the narrative goes from one end of the Bible to the other. It starts in Genesis, you come to Revelation. The old ones are going to be released in the end times to torment human beings on earth once again. And I think that they will unveil phenomenal powers, the same kind of powers they used to create all these enormous projects in the beginning. They're going to be released as part of God's judgment. The old ones then are about to make their appearance, and I think what we're doing right now is we're in the part of history where bit by bit there's a disclosure going on.
There is. I think we're in the midst of what could be described as a soft disclosure. In other words, things are being leaked purposely from different institutions, from the Vatican, from also from NASA and different institutions around the earth, that are suggesting to the populace that there is something to all of this, and it's the proverbial boiling frog scenario.
Yep.
The human populace on the earth right now is slowly being acclimated to the idea that we're not alone in the universe, that there's extraterrestrial origins to the human race on the earth, and in my estimation, that's going to be part of the lie that's being crafted even as we speak. And I believe that there's going to be soon, because they're not going to be able to keep a lid on this for too much longer.
Right.
Because of all the revelations that are happening all over the earth. Everybody has cameras now, so when there's a UFO, when there's some sort of an object hovering in the sky, you get a dozen people who pull out their cameras with high definition video recording capacity on them, and they begin to record and instantly upload them to the internet.
That's right.
So you can't hide this stuff any longer. So what do? You just come out and tell the people that this stuff is real. Well, then there may be chaos, but the most important reason why they wouldn't do that is because they're interested in controlling the narrative. They don't want people to draw their own conclusions, especially not conclusions that are derived from the text of Scripture.
The Antichrist system, then, is already in play. That is to say, a massive worldwide system of propaganda is in play. And, by the way, that's a big part of this DVD. We have people on earth now who are looking, they're watching, and they believe that, in fact, they have built gigantic instruments which they believe will allow them to see the old ones returning once again. Can you believe what I just said? This is a strange thing to have to utter in public, that there are actually people on earth looking for the arrival of the old ones, the fallen angels.
That's right. And what people have to understand, in order to make sense of of those kind of statements, because they are hard to believe unless you have an understanding that you have an echelon, you have a hierarchy in place. You have the Luciferian occult elite, who are not only looking for the return of the gods, but are trying to catalyze their return, are trying to open gates, are trying to, through sorcery and through all kinds of different illicit means, trying to make contact and bring about the resurrection of the Golden Age, which was the world before the flood of Noah. But then you have multitudes of scientific people who are involved in some of these projects. The one specifically that you are referencing is Mount Graham and the Lucifer device. You have all kinds of scientists working on with those telescopes who have no idea that the data that they're collecting is being used by that upper echelon, that occult society, the Luciferian elite, who have completely different designs for the information and the technology that's being developed. So most of the scientists working with these telescopes, or working at CERN, or working on these high-tech projects, are working on them believing that they're just advancing human knowledge, or they're trying to develop technologies that are useful to the human race, or they're trying to look for exoplanets, which is what they publicly declare about Mount Graham. They're looking for exoplanets where alien life might be possible. But I believe that, again, the occult elite, the ruling established occult Luciferian elite already know that these things exist. They're not looking for them. They're trying to bring them back.
And to become part of the power that they believe will come down. In other words, it's a power grab. If we can control this, we can control the world. Well, that's the story of the Antichrist.
Exactly, and that's they pledge allegiance to the prince that is to come.